And good day, everyone. Good day, everyone, and welcome to FYNB Talks, Financing Your Next Billion Talks. I'm your co host, Jerome Curry, alongside the amazing Yvonne Gamble. Thankful that we have you here with us today. Got an exciting topic. Yvonne, what's going on in your world? And tell us what we're talking about today.
Okay. Oh my goodness, it has been a week, Jerome. It has been a week. The State Department has been all throughout this week and the better part of last week, all throughout Europe. President Biden, along with the team, have been there. They've done a lot with the climate change. They're doing a lot with, setting up some of our different channels, making sure that we can get the distribution on our necessary, uh, our health supplies, our health medicines, and that sort of thing. Especially as we're coming into the winter, pretty much across the United States, that's going to be an issue, as always. With our cold and flu season is coming in, and now this will be the first season that we're actually going to see how this COVID is going to actually play out. And there's several different new vaccines or new different pills, I should say, not vaccines. But Pfizer just announced today, as a matter of fact, that they got a new pill that you can take or that can be prescribed to you, as well as Merck is coming out with something, in that area. But what we're going to be talking about here is about renewable energy and can we keep up with the energy demand. And the reason why this is very important, and it's extremely important for us to get back into the climate accord, the Paris Climate Accord, was simply because you can see in the United States, we took a real big hit in California this year with the wildfires. We took a big hit again, after Katrina down in Louisiana on the coastal area with the devastation. It wasn't as bad as Katrina, but there was devastation. And then considering the fact that we really had not 100% recovered from Katrina, and then we're already facing another devastation. And then if we look also in our outlying jurisdiction of islands for the United States, several of our islands in the Caribbean also took a hit, with the different hurricanes and with different things, Puerto Rico. It's just been, one thing after another, and it's hardly given us any breathing room. If you think about it, people probably, listening can remember, back 30, 40 years ago, we got some breathing room between a devastating climate circle with coming in, whether it be big storms, rainstorms, hurricanes, what have you. You kind of got a year, 2 years before you saw something else. Well, it's not going like that. And I just wanted to first to kind of preface this with just a little slight introduction, to renewables and the production of renewables and the energy demand. Well, right now we're right in the throes of we're used to being able to go to the gas pump and put the gas pump in, and that's pretty much now across the world, not just in America or in developed countries. That's everywhere. You go and there's fuel, and you can fuel your cars, your jet engines, your buses, your trains, even ships that go across, with ships and airplanes, what have you. Everybody could literally pull up to some type of pump and get, some type of fuel, and that was fossil fuel. Well, with renewables, which are better for no one is saying that renewables are not better for the environment. Yes, they are. What the issue is can they keep up with the demand? And right now, they cannot. So that's why, yes, we are in a transition period in which we're having to transition from the fossil fuels over to the renewables. And it's not good versus bad. It's supply and demand. We have a we got a low supply and a high demand. Renewables take time. And then also, we're going to have to come up with some different types of renewables. And the reason being is because what you're seeing now, when we think about, oh, we can use the wind farms, and yes, we're putting a lot of wind farms across the United States and across other countries or what have you, and that's wonderful. But that depends on what wind. And in
Absolutely.
many of the climates, in the winter months, the wind does not blow as strong in a lot of places, like China, in out in arid countries, arid areas. It doesn't blow as strong, so therefore, they don't get the ability to conserve the wind that's going. So whatever they have massed up during the season when it's not cold, they use it up, and they use it up to the point where they have nothing when they do come out of the cold. So now they're having to restore. So you have to figure out, how do you do that? How do you overcome that particular issue? There's some other things that I'm going to also be talking about as we go through here. But what I'd like to do, and I'll come back and touch on some other things through this, but I really want to go over. Jerome has got some excellent points that he's going to talk about, and that is one of the main points that we have for this particular episode is about projections, on energy demands and the overall energy shortage. So I'm going to turn it over to Jerome and let him give you some insight on those areas.
Absolutely. And I just want to let our audience know, someone may ask, well, how does this apply to financing your next billion? Well, one of the things that you want to be able to do is keep your pulse and keep your finger on the future. Energy is something that it's almost just as not very close to essential as water in these times. You can imagine if we didn't have energy, our plants wouldn't go. If we didn't have energy, our systems, our hospitals, all those places would have issues in being able to do what they do. And in your business, you're going to see the results of energy depending upon what if you're running a IT firm, you may see higher costs for your energy. You may be looking at renewable sources of energy. Again, you want to be able to make sure that one of your primary necessary items, even though we don't think about it, you want to go ahead and be aware of what's going on with energy. So one of the things that's happening now that's very key is that the IEA, the International Energy Agency, they're advising that electricity demand is set to rebound strongly. It's going to jump up by 5% in 2022. The amount of electricity generated from renewables is set to increase by 8% and more than 6% in 2022. So what's happening is even though that renewable energy is increasing, it's still not able to keep pace with the global demand. And that's important. So why is that important? Why? Because we're seeing at this particular point, we're seeing higher costs. We're seeing higher inflation in the United States, and you may be seeing higher inflation in other places. Well, one of our costs is energy. So the cost to be able to produce goods, the cost to be able to fuel vehicles and get the items you need transported. Let's say if you run some type of if you run any type of business, you're seeing higher costs right now because of the supply and demand chain. We already mentioned how that's going to be key in the fourth industrial revolution. Well, the next part of this is key. That's really key is understanding that there's an overall energy shortage. What does that mean? At the same time, the amount spent on oil and gas has actually declined as prices collapsed in 2020. So what we as investors are looking at, we're looking at a market where we see a significant, there were a couple things that happened. And this is why it's so important to understand all the elements that are going on. We had a very strong push towards renewable energy. Also, at the same time, we had an economy that had pretty much stalled due to COVID-19, and then this economy, all of a sudden, everybody kind of stalls. The supply chain the supply chain kind of breaks down a bit. There's not a lot of high energy costs. So what's happening? Well, simply what's happening, the economy slowed down. And so now you've got an economy that's ramping back up, and everybody's wanting to get back out there. Everybody's wanting to travel. Everybody's wanting to do all these things. Everybody wants to buy. Well, that puts a significant strain on the supply chain. Well, that puts a significant strain on overall energy. So total spending in 2021 for energy was more than 350 billion, well below 2019 levels. What does that mean? That means that we spent less money on gas, and we spent less money. So that means that there's a bit of a shortage now. And renewable energy, there has not been enough, and Yvonne will talk a little bit more about this. There has not been enough invested in renewable energy to meet the decline in the gas. So right now we have not just a renewable energy shortage, but we have an energy shortage, period, which is a huge piece, and it's going to affect us for some time. Now, what you want to do as a business owner, you want to be aware of some of these energy changes, and we're giving you these ideas so that you could also potentially turn them into concepts. And that's something that Yvonne will take a look at, because again, you want to start to think about, what can I do as a inventor or as a business owner that can help improve supply chain, that can help improve this energy crisis. And again, to the victor goes the spoils. Anything you like to add to that, Yvonne, as we kind of go into this next piece?
Sure. Basically, and I kind of put that up about, the world is in transition against renewables versus the fossils. We tend to think of things in competition. But the thing about it is that we may be looking at the fossil fuel to kind of carry us through until we can get the renewables at a point where they can kind of carry us over and they can actually replace. And we're going to, as Jerome has said, yes, we want, as investors, we rely on the marketplace. We rely on those people the inventors, the disruptors, the people who come up with the ideas, the scientists or the non-scientists, to come up with something, the business owners, the entrepreneurs. We rely on you to come up with, how can we actually make this work? We can't be dependent on a source or resource that's dependent on the weather, which is changing. The climate is changing. That's the very thing we're trying to abate and avoid. And so therefore we can't trust that the weather is actually going to give us this new climate solution for our fuel, because the weather is in a state of chaos, if you will. The climate is in a state of chaos because it is in a state of transition. So if you think about it, we're all in a state of, everything is in a state of transition. So we're trying to use the weather or those types of things, empower our structures, empower what we have, but we have to find some type of source or create some type of source that is actually going to make a difference. And so we're going to be using, unfortunately, I know for some people probably don't want to hear this, but we will be using fossil fuels as a backup for a period of time. And I'm going to let Jerome take the first stab and the first shot at that, and then I'll come back and talk to you about, some of the climate change, how it really affects us totally, and how we can address some of the metals shortfalls when we're looking at things like going into electricity as an aside. So we got the lights are flashing. We have to pay our bills too. So to our sponsors. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break for a short commercial. After the commercial, we'll come back. Jerome will bring us in talking about fossil fuels, and then we'll move from there.
Your medical PPE supplier. Talk to our in-country distributors and get your PPE needs fulfilled. Sign up for recurring shipping to receive deep discounts and keep PPE inventory on hand at all times. We heard your requests and placed strategically located warehouses throughout countries near shipping ports to assure Mobamed PPE supplies are available when you need them.
Okay, and thank you so much for coming back after the break. And if you're just joining us, you're joining Yvonne Gamble, and I'm here with my co-host Jerome Curry, and you are joining FYNB live. And today we are talking about fuels and renewables, and we're coming right back in. And Jerome is going to give us a little bit on fossil fuels as a backup. We have for probably the last 20 years roughly, we've been down with fossil fuels, out with that. We don't want to do it. But now we're sitting in the rice bowl or the bowl and saying, we might have to keep this as a backup. So what can you tell us, Jerome?
Absolutely. I think, Yvonne, one of the keys that we want to understand is that we have to have some type of backup plan. Here's what I mean. Let's say you build a lot of wind farms. Let's say you build some hydro reservoirs and hydro generation facilities. The problem is those are impacted by climate. So let's say, for example, you're in an area where you don't get a lot of sunshine. The sun doesn't shine for a little while. Let's say you're in an area where the water starts to dry up. Well, if your entire energy system was based off of those capabilities, you're going to have an issue. And so you can just imagine if you don't have some type of backup plan or backup strategy, then you've got people out in the streets, rioting because we have no energy. There's no backup plan. You took away, there's no gas. So we quit using gas so there's no option for us to be able to go to. What we're saying is that renewable energy sources tend to underdeliver during certain periods. So there are some other factors that we have to consider with renewable energy. Now, what that means is we have to manage the delicate balance of utilizing gas while pushing forward to the future for newer energies. It's a higher level of conversation. And what I'd like to say is this: every renewable energy source, we adopted gas as a universal energy source, right? That was the source of energy that we utilize. We utilize gas. Well, we're now trying to, I think one of the things that's happening is that we're trying to pigeonhole everyone across the world into one renewable energy solution. And that's dangerous. That is not accurate, and it can't be the same. We can't have the same level of thinking. I remember the quote from one of my leaders. They said, the same level of thinking that brought you to this place is not going to be the same level of thinking that will take you to the next place. So we have to be able to build capacity for renewables to be able to cover more. And then we also have to have a backup system. The renewable energy source situation and solution, we have to look at it as probably on a region or a country by country basis, or even a region by region basis. And that's going to be important for us to be able to understand that one size does not fit all. So being able to utilize the technology, utilize the think space, utilize the wisdom that we have, the collective wisdom that we have from around the world to develop innovative solutions. And then as investors, we're looking, there's dry powder that's available. We're going to be looking for those innovative solutions, because guess what? Even Middle Eastern countries are aware that gas is not the long-term solution. So they're looking at investing in other solutions. Bigger oil companies, BP, Shell, they started investing in renewable energy options and solutions. So again, everyone is aware that the conversation is changing. It's just that there's no cohesiveness as to what's going to be happening next, which really kind of leads us to kind of talking about the climate targets and then being able to move forward on understanding carbon and how these things kind of play a role. Yvonne, any pieces on that as you start to talk about the climate and how things are moving forward?
Sure. One of the things I really wanted to touch on, and that's this is from a scientific standpoint, and that is we're trying to reach in the climate agreement. We have already set in the Paris Accord that we would be able, we're trying to get to that 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's our magic number. And the reason for that is we're saying that we want to maintain temperatures, that the overall Earth temperature does not go up over that. So that in order to do that, we have to decrease the amount of that carbon that's going into the air. That's why everybody's saying net zero, reduce my carbon footprint. And so therefore, this is not just simply, so that everyone understands, it's not just simply about the fuels that we use to, to eat with or what have you. It's also the types of foods that we actually produce. It's, it's whether or not we have, cows. They can, meat animals or what have you. They also have a carbon footprint so the more we consume, that's one of the reasons why you see the big push into the vegan and the vegetarian, diets and lifestyles. Those are changing is because the more we consume beef, well, obviously the more cows we have to, actually have. And then that also contributes to it. Every little piece of the food chain makes a difference. Every little piece of the life cycle makes a difference in getting to that. Now, with that being said, what is that going to look like as far as economically? This is FYNB. Talks and everything we talk about here is always going to go back to how much is it going to cost? How much are we going to spend? Well, in this year alone, 750 billion will be spent. 750 billion will be spent on clean energy. To reach that 1.5 Celsius goal by about 2030, 2035, and hopefully by 2050 to reduce it to that, we'd have to spend triple that every single year. And each year they're over. Well, this is the type of monies that we're talking about. And so therefore we've got to really put in the money. So if you're saying I just spent 750 billion, you're literally saying, fine, I've got to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of about 22 trillion every single year, and then triple that as the years go on every year thereafter in order to be able to replace, because that's what has to happen. Just as Jerome has said, what we have, we got used to it. Everybody's used, we use this one size fits all. That's not going to work. We're going to have to look at some areas are going to have one thing, some areas are going to have something else to do it. And then there's going to be the issue of parity of service. Am I going to be getting the same quality of service in my area as you get in your area, my country as you get in your country? All these things need to, yes, there's a lot that has to really be thought about and talked about, in this. So I'm really going to kind of leave it right there, Jerome, because it is it's grossly affected.
That's huge. And I'm going to say this, Yvonne, right before we hop into the metal shortfalls. The Chinese have a two-sided coin they have a two-sided word where danger, it's danger and opportunity at the same time. And where there's disruption, there's opportunities for these localized economies that if they can own their own energy source and own their own energy solutions, then they can become an economy to themselves. So as we start to talk about, global opportunities, if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking at, listen, I can partner I can partner now globally with another country, providing an energy solution, and I can be a change maker on a global scale and put together an energy solution for another country. Because again, there's going to because of how this shift is happening, there's going to be a divergence in how things are normally done, and so that presents an opportunity for someone up and coming to provide options and opportunities for those regions and for those local economies.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You're absolutely right. And so we're going to, as you can see, this is a wide and varied topic, and we're going to be coming back and addressing, each of these pieces, over the coming year, here on FYNB Talks. I just wanted to address very quickly with you about our metals shortfall, because I want people to be aware. And I know many people out there in the audience are thinking, well, why aren't they just simply saying, we're going to electric cars, electric vehicles, all these different companies are coming on board, and they have these wonderful electric vehicles that they have, and they're very good. Well, unfortunately, we literally are about to run out of nickel. Nickel is one of the main components in the lithium. Lithium, cobalt, and nickel are the metals that are essential to generate renewable energy, especially in the production of electric vehicles. And in 2021, by the end of this year, we literally will have run out of nickel. So, what does that mean? One of the things that the people did not realize during the pandemic, they saw it as they thought that it was being because we wanted to go to a cashless society, when they were saying there was a shortage of change. And they were asking people to not use your change, to bring it into centers and exchange the change for dollars, or put it into your bank account, what have you. But they wanted you to stop using the change. Well, it wasn't they wanted you to stop using the change. They were taking the change and trying to address the shortage of the lithium, the cobalt, and the nickel and copper. It's also used in the production of these batteries for electric vehicles. So as you can see, that is not just simply a quick fix, an easy, there is no easy way out, of this. So we want you to, really be thinking very hard about what might we do and how might we make these changes. And also, we have to also be very cognizant of, as we can see, that supply chain. Where are we getting our supplies from? Who has these supplies? And what can that do to the actual delivery and distribution of what you have? That's why it is going to be an imperative that you are forming these collaborative partnerships across the globe, because the electric vehicle supply chain is almost totally dependent on China for upstream materials. And if you're anywhere in the United States or anywhere where we're still sitting and waiting on just the electronic control model chips to come out of China, and that's not even for the electric vehicles, that's even for our gas-powered vehicles. And so now you go around the United States and you see car lots that are empty without any vehicles there for sale. And that's because of that, depending on that upstream. And so what we can look in, we can see long-term power outages to result in this. So what we're going to have to do is we're really going to have to think this through. We're going to have to think all of this through. And like I said, we'll be coming back to you over the course of 2022, and we'll be addressing all of the different things that we spoke about here. Today, think about it like this. Today was simply a teaser. This show was asking the question, can renewable energy keep up with energy demand? And I'm very certain that everyone received the same thing that we did when we put the show together. And the answer to that question is, right now, is we don't have the necessary things in place to actually make this happen and we're going to have to put those things in place. And that's going to be dependent on you as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as potential partners, as potential collaborators to help make this possible so that our renewable energies and the different variant types that we actually bring on board will be able to keep up with that energy demand as time goes on. Jerome, any final thoughts that you have?
Where do you want your product shipped today? Make Mobamed your PPE inventory warehouse.
Excellent. Yvonne, fantastic information. It's so important that we know what's coming. And since if we know what's coming, then we can be better prepared for it. And not only can we better prepare for it, but we can also build in opportunities and keep ahead of the times. And that's what our role here with FYNB Talks is, not only to help you to finance your next billion, but be able to keep your billion and then provide for future opportunities and keep you ahead of the class. I'm your co-host, Jerome Curry, with Yvonne Gamble, telling you have a great day.